Welcome to Visa Spotlight, a podcast by Visa that shines a light on the most exciting developments in the payments landscape right now, while also giving you a glimpse into what the future holds for us all.
Hello and welcome to Visa Spotlights, our podcast series where we explore some of the largest and most exciting trends that are shaping payments, commerce and money movement across Central and Eastern Europe, Middle East and Africa. In today's discussion, we're going to take more of a regional view and look at one of the most dynamic, diverse and digitized regions around the world, which is Central and Eastern Europe. And joining me today is someone who knows this region better than anyone, Cristina Doros, who is Senior Vice President and Group Country Manager for our presence within the region. Now, Cristina has been based and lived and worked across many of the key markets, which we'll explore today. Moldova, Ukraine, Georgia,
and
Kazakhstan at the moment. So welcome once again, Cristina. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Dan, and thank you for having me.
So perhaps you could start by giving us a bit more of a flavour for the region and where we operate and where we're present across Central and Eastern Europe.
Absolutely, because obviously, probably I love my region and I love these markets, these countries. As you mentioned, I have either lived or heavily traveled through all of them, so it gives me really a good grasp of what's going on and what the region consists of, basically. And as you said, it's very diverse in terms of the culture, traditions, and then technical advancement. But basically, these are 17 markets, nicely spread across, very strategically, I would say. It's kind of between Europe, Turkey, and China. And our markets are really diverse, and that, I think, makes it even more challenging sometimes, and then interesting to work there and to digitize, to make the payments digital as we do now with our team across our markets. So altogether, if you think, it's 164 million people living in our markets. Our PC penetration has grown up, I would say, and now we are nicely positioned with 36% of penetration. Yet we've done a lot, and probably we will cover that as we go. Yet we still see a huge opportunity ahead of us. If you put it in numbers, it's still 300 billion of cash that can be and should be, in my view, converted to digital. And it's about 4 million of still untapped merchants. So a lot of things ahead of us to do and to work on.
Fantastic. I think one of the most interesting parts of your region, or one of the most interesting elements about the region, is that it truly is leading the way in some of the emerging technologies around digitization, which I think we will explore sort of a bit later and look at a few of those. But if you were to give a bit of a picture of the overall digital landscape, how digital payments are growing, what's happening in commerce and money movement across the region, how would you sort of describe it today?
Many things are happening indeed, and you're right. We're very proud of setting the trend sometime and starting absolutely new things. But we launch, it may be first time in CEMEA. It happened a few times. We were first globally with some of the launches of the digital payment technologies. And overall, if you look at the region, how we progress, so the few key highlights probably would be overall growth of digital payments. So it's 36% of growth of digital payments, number of transactions. And we are 14% growth of number of accepting locations and 16% growth of number of cards or Visa credentials we have in place. And when I say 60%, like, what's that? Is it, how much is that?
Yeah.
So for our region, it's actually meant 15 million Visa credentials added during the last year. And digital growing, obviously, and you can see the key areas or dimensions it's growing. So the most important would, and I think will remain, it's tokenization. Number of tokenized transactions has grown with 73% this year, which is an amazing result. And as you may know, we have countries who are absolute champions in driving tokenization. Now Ukraine and Georgia are the most advanced from that standpoint. So Ukraine has shown 56% of penetration of tokenized transactions. Georgia is very much catching up with 46%. And I would highlight Azerbaijan, where tokenization was launched not so long ago. It's now 3.5 years, and it's showing amazing pace of growth because people were so eager and so open to use tokenization. Apple Pay, Google Pay, we've launched together with local partners. So tokenization is definitely one of the drivers, and we are now focusing a lot on bringing the convenience, the security of tokenization, of tokenized way of doing payments into e-commerce. That's probably the next very important milestone for us, because obviously we understand that e-commerce by nature is exposed to many more types of cybersecurity threats. So tokenization is very clear and very strong, very sound response to all those threats. So now we are very actively working on bringing tokenization across e-com.
I mean, you mentioned there how many different ways consumers and merchants are looking to pay or be paid, and the fact there's been this big shift sort of online and towards e-commerce. But one of the most interesting facts, I think, and highlights for the region is some of the leadership in terms of the in-store payments. So perhaps you could tell us a little more about the sort of the journey for contactless and why you're so proud of one of the stories from within the region.
Yes, it's been a journey, and it started back in 2015, actually, when we've launched first issuer-led wallet in Georgia. That basically meant that people could link their cards back then to the wallet and their phones. And then, with all the progress, it built the base for Apple Pay and Google Pay really started to look into this market, because otherwise, Georgia is not the largest sized market, yet the penetration of contactless became so big that these big guys entered the market. So we basically ended up having Georgia #1 globally by the level of contactless penetration. And that's an amazing result. And what makes us very much proud is that it keeps that very prestigious rank for a number of years now. And that's, of course, became possible for a few reasons, as we see it. First, the readiness and the way banks would perceive the innovation. That was something very important for them. That was something that was on every bank's agenda. And back then, maybe, today innovation is something which is happening today, and basically you don't look ahead to see innovation. You should look into today to see the innovation around. Back then, say 2015, it wasn't that obvious yet, maybe for some. So the readiness of Georgian banks to go implement and invest into new technologies was #1 reasoning behind. The second, though, was the way people were open to use it, and people got so used to the contactless. It happened once I came into the business trip to Georgia, and I must admit, back then my corporate card was not contactless yet. That's funny, but that's the way it was. And when I handed it into the taxi, I handed it to the driver. He didn't understand what's going on, because he was expecting me to tap, and I had to still insert the chip. So it was funny to see how people quickly got used to this level of innovation and convenience, basically, and security.
And great to get some payments lessons from taxi drivers in Tbilisi.
Indeed,
as well.
that was my very. So I came back back then I was living in Ukraine. I came back and we visited the bank which was holding our corporate cards. And I said, guys, could you please implement contactless? Now I'm putting people in awkward situations.
Absolutely. So as you said, it's a great example as well, not just of the innovation, but how the industry and the ecosystem has come together to be able to drive sort of lasting and meaningful change collaboratively rather than independently.
And we didn't stop there, by the way. If to continue Georgia's story, which actually reflects wider CISSEE story or our region story. So we continue to drive that constantly by introducing new technologies that would allow the contactless and then tokenization to flourish, like tap-to-phone. During the last year, our region has doubled the number of the gadgets being linked to tap-to-phone. And our region is now #4 globally by scaling tap-to-phone. And what we did last year in Ukraine, in 2023, we have launched the first in CEMEA iOS-based tap-to-phone in partnership with Privat Bank in Ukraine. And it has really further boosted the tap-to-phone penetration. Right. So as an example.
And so there's another great example. I think we'll come to one more in a second as well. So we spoke about contactless and the leadership there and tap-to-phone. Another area sort of away from commerce is around money movement, which is obviously such a big part of Visa's business globally in enabling secure, convenient money transfers. But this is, again, another topic which the Central and Eastern Europe region has been leading the way sort of globally on. With Visa Direct, I think it's a couple of the markets, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, are 1 and 2 globally, or 2 and 3 globally. Could you perhaps share a bit more in terms of what you're seeing there and how that's been sort of built up, both as an industry, but also in terms of consumers' preference?
Sure. I would say that overall payments business, and specifically money movement, pretty much depend on a larger infrastructure, because it's not just payments technology themselves. I would say it starts with a foundation like general infrastructure, electricity availability or internet availability. So this is very important part, which obviously sits with the public governance bodies, and that's very important that there is that infrastructure developed. By the way, the penetration of smartphones in our region is 90+%, which gives us, big a good foundational element to drive money movement specifically, because today money movement, obviously that's mobile. Yeah. You wouldn't go for a website or something, or I don't even mention branches to do money movement, so that's very important. And another part of it is regulation, which kind of adds to this foundation by providing the right level of oversight, compliance rules, and everything. So that's again sits obviously with the regulators. And I would say that regulation on our part of the world, or regulators, to put it differently, is very much advanced. And we have a great dialogue with central banks across the board, where we can really sit down and look together into what needs to be ensured to make sure that people have this really connectivity opportunity to the money movement. So that's very important part, which is being built, and it's not ideal, of course, yet we believe we've reached a good level of development here as well. And that's to the public part. Yeah. When it comes to the private part, where we are the key, I would say, enabler, we as Visa, our key enabler and key driver of this money movement by putting in the technologies and solutions.
Fantastic. So I'd like to sort of stay on that theme around partnership as well. And you spoke about regulation and the work that we're doing with government bodies, government organizations. Obviously, partnership is there both during the good times, but also some of the challenging times, which we've certainly seen within some of the markets within your region, including Ukraine recently. I wondered whether we could talk about the way in which we're partnering and strengthening the partnership over the last couple of years with the Ukraine government in some of the services which they've been bringing to citizens, and how important that's been through such difficult times within the country.
Absolutely. And indeed, this is what we at Visa strongly believe. Partners are partners, no matter what happens around. And especially when the times are tough, that's probably even more important. So we do partner with many markets and governments across the board. And as you say, Ukraine probably is most notable because for many reasons, and I'll cover them now, but it's very important for us because we can help, and we're doing so. So our partnership started back in 2019 when Ukrainian government decided to implement this government services application, which is called DIA, like action. And Visa brought in the merchant gateway, basically, so the payment gateway. So we brought in the opportunity to for the consumers to ensure that in this government services app, they can actually do payments for the government services. Mm-hmm. So these C2G, as we say, consumer to government payments become possible, and that's really allowed us to, together with the government, to build, or Ministry of Digital Transformation, basically as a part of the government, to build this complex and comprehensive one-stop shop for every or most of the government services, where consumers could conveniently search, use, and then pay for them. And the next move happened within COVID, when many governments, obviously across the world, were thinking how to streamline all the relief payments they were doing to the population. And that's when the G2C government to consumer became part of the game as well, and also enabled by Visa. So we've made possible to digitally issue the card or card credential or Visa credential in the application, and this Visa credential would be the source to receive funds from the government for those who were in need. It was called e-relief, I believe, from Ukrainian translation. Mm-hmm. And now as we understand how much effort the government is putting in to provide the citizens of Ukraine the support and relief so much needed, so we use these rails to make sure we can quickly, safely, and securely distribute the funds the government is putting to people's disposal for eventually restoring the houses which were destroyed by the war. That's one of the directions we're taking together. That's called e-відновлення, e-renewal, I could translate it. And much more we're doing together with the ministry, aside from the purely kind of digital things, like payments built within the application or digital issuance within the application. That's much more kind of broader, I would say, socially important thing. So we run a partner program, which is called Відважна, like brave. And that's basically the span, one of the spans of our She's Next initiatives. And we will touch upon that, but I will just stop here for Ukraine one. And that's the Visa and Ministry of Digital Transformation way to support female-run micro and small businesses in Ukraine, which we understand under today's circumstances is even more important than ever to do. And we are doing those projects to providing the women who run their business or plan to start their business, providing them with the knowledge, experience sharing, mentoring, and very practical tools, like digital tools to accept payments at their shop, for instance. So all that together really helps us to provide these businesses with the very practical things, like mentorships, like knowledge, like through the courses or trainings, but then also it builds such a strong network of inspiration and the sense that you are not alone, and the sense that you are supported by the communities around you. And that's very important, we believe.
Excellent. And I think the DIA program and She's Next, particularly in Ukraine, have clearly become so prominent and important over the last couple of years. Could you perhaps talk about She's Next more broadly? Because obviously it's a program which, again, has been championed throughout the region which you're in. And love to hear a bit more in terms of the sort of the background and the ambition for the program moving forward.
Absolutely. That's the topic I'm very passionate about, and I must say I'm very thankful to my company, because to me that's an ideal opportunity to have a chance as my part of my work life to influence, to hopefully improve the things which I am very passionate personally. It's something I very much believe into, that support to women who run their businesses, who want to start their businesses is critical. And one may argue, like, would that mean that men do not need that support? No, of course, everyone needs the support. But given all the specifics and all the cultural nuances, all the traditional nuances of a woman in a society, I am a deep believer that indeed women-led small and micro business should be supported. And that's really ties me so close to the Visa initiative, which is global, as you know. She's Next, empowered by Visa. And we landed it locally in our region, I believe. And it's not just I believe so, that's what we hear as a feedback from our participants, and also what we see from the numbers, it's being very successful. So let me kind of say that we see twofold, I would say. There is kind of that pan-regional view. So we run it across almost all the markets or all the countries in our region, and to provide that kind of foundation to it, in partnership with Emerging Europe, we have launched this She's Next platform, which is basically a web-based resource where people or women can register and then get access to the plethora of materials, starting from the training materials, from the very practical explanations or guides how to get the grant, how to apply for a loan to the bank, how to build your business case, how to look at the market cases where you should direct your business, and so on. Also, you can basically get a mentor there. And even more important to me is the opportunity to network and connect to women entrepreneurs from basically 17 markets across our region. And we've seen how these connections would basically lead to the business expansion. So they would meet, they would on the platform, they would discuss, they would see the opportunity to move the businesses, and then they can go with expanding their business eventually from Georgia to Serbia or from Kazakhstan to Ukraine, and that's amazing. And also there is a local flavor to it. You know, a woman which is successful in her business, it means probably better education for her kids, it means probably better health conditions for her family, and it basically means more wealthy and prosperous communities. To be able to drive that part even more impactfully, what we did specifically in Kazakhstan, we took this She's Next initiative out of the capital city. So we ran the, if I may say, the roadshow, the series of She's Next days across 8 cities in Kazakhstan region. And as you know, Kazakhstan is a large territory country, so the distance is big. And it's impossible, basically, for just, you know, a woman entrepreneur to travel to Almaty for a visa She's Next initiative. So we brought it locally. We brought it there in Kazakh language, bringing this locally important content on small business development into these regions. And that's just one of the examples which we're doing, because we do the same in Georgia, we do the same in Central Asia overall, we do the same in Ukraine and Belarus and Moldova, and it's very important. And I think that's how we can pay back to the communities we are working with.
So we've just spoken around a number of areas which are very important initiatives where great progress has been made and which we'll continue to focus on. Going back to the very beginning of our conversation, we spoke about some of the changes in commerce and how some of that tokenization is sort of being brought online. And I know this is an area which you're particularly focused on and particularly passionate about, is how we can improve the e-commerce experience for consumers and small businesses. Perhaps you could talk a little around some of the technologies which you see driving that.
E-commerce is being the driver of all the commerce now, and providing the both consumers and merchants with the sleek experience, with a good consumer experience, is very important to continue to grow this business. As an example of how Visa does that, probably Click-to-Pay would serve as a good testament to it. Click-to-Pay is a technology that allows secure and convenient payment in e-com. And before, it existed in the form of manual card entry and then, you know, confirming the transaction, which we all do all the time through the one-time passwords you would receive via SMS or push into your mobile application. And now with the latest developments and introducing the new types of authentication, we can couple Click-to-Pay with biometrical authentication, which would means that you would register once. Well, that would be still the story of OTP, but that would be just once. After you've registered on the website, then you would be able to complete your payment just through the biometrical authentication on the merchant side or through introducing your mobile number, and then all the necessary information will be taken by us from the secure storage to provide it to the merchant. So basically all those will be happening at the back end. For you and for me as a consumers, we will just enjoy very convenient and secure payments in e-commerce. And we are now working very actively to scale the Click-to-Pay in Ukraine, and we will follow with other markets.
Excellent. I know how passionate you are about the technology, having previously led the products and solutions business for the region.
We say once a product, always a product.
Indeed. Well, look, thank you so much again for joining us today, Cristina.
It's my pleasure.
Wonderful to hear many of these great developments and great progress that's being made across Central and Eastern Europe. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Great. And thank you so much for joining us. Hope you've enjoyed the discussion as much as I have, and look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.